Hey guys, Ted Hentschke here again with DreadCentral.com, and today I'm going to talk to you about Vampyr with a Y, so Vampyr, but they pronounce it Vampyr. I got a chance to talk to the team recently at E3 2016 about what to expect from the game, and you know, there's not a lot of information out about this game yet, so this is going to be kind of a dense video. I'm not really going to talk about the combat today. I'm going to have that in my accompanying article, but the combat's not really the focus of the game. So a little bit of information about Vampyr. Vampyr takes place in the 1800s during the outbreak of the deadliest plague to hit Europe, the Spanish flu. And in the backdrop of the Spanish flu, you play as a doctor who has recently turned into a vampire. Now, the developers of the game, Don't Nod Entertainment, were previously known for their critically acclaimed title, Life is Strange, and their title that certainly did exist, Remember Me. Perfect example of a 7 out of 10. And so, you know, going from those two to Vampyr, my initial question was, why Vampyr? And I got a kind of an interesting answer here. They said that they didn't want to make a vampire game. That wasn't their intention initially. They wanted to tell a story, a good story about a conflicted character that's fighting between this dual nature. And that's how they came up with this doctor character that is turned into a vampire, that has to live and also save lives as a doctor, but also take lives as a vampire. So going from there, it kind of just naturally evolved into this vampire tale. And when I asked them what kind of inspiration they got their vampire lore from, they said that they had taken it from a number of sources. One of the guys said his favorite vampire series was Interview with Vampires, so the Anne Rice vampire lore. But I asked them if there'd be any sparkly vampires, and they were adamant that no vampires would sparkle in this game. So some of the traits of the vampire that they maintained, the need to feed on human blood, the inability to go into someone's house unless they invite you. I thought that one was really interesting. And they were a little bit tight-lipped on the rest of it. I asked, you know, what about the daylight? They said, we'll go into that a little bit later. So they're being still deliberately vague on some of the vampire lore. But, you know, what's interesting is that the main character, as a doctor, starts out by viewing this as a disease. He wants to try to find a cure at first, and that's going to lead him to some revelations about the different kinds of vampires, the nature of vampiracy, and etc. So what they said is that the game is not... So first off, it's an action adventure RPG kind of game. And they said that the stealth element, which they don't want to call it stealth, is that you have to fit in with normal people. And that's about balancing your nature as a doctor and your nature as a vampire. So one of the things they said is that you'll still have your residency at the hospital, and you'll have to work on curing the Spanish flu, and there's a detective element to it because you're trying to discover the link between the Spanish flu and these vampires. But also, as a doctor, you'll have the chance to cure people. So as a vampire, you can smell their sickness. You can figure out if they have cholera, if they have, you know, various different diseases, influenza, and you can try to come up with a cure for them. And this not only functions your role as a doctor, but they also kind of referred to it as tending your flock. Because as a vampire, you must feed. So one of the things that's a tagline for this game is, you have to kill, but you have to choose who you have to kill, which isn't entirely accurate. When I asked the team, do I actually have to kill in this game? They said, well, no. It's going to be incredibly difficult if you don't. Because they came up with a rather novel solution to this, you know, needing to kill for, you know, a gameplay mechanic. Because obviously, as someone who wants to be a 100% completionist and play as a good guy, I would just kill the vampire hunters and eat them. Well, the experience that you actually get from combat is very low. And you get a huge boost of experience for feeding off of a civilian. Also, not every civilian is good or bad. There's a lot of moral gray area here. In the area that they demoed in the game, Whitechapel, you can feed off of this guy who is kind of a low-level street thug, leg breaker, and he's doing it to help support his sick child. And what they want to emphasize is that you can eat anyone in the game, and it's going to have rippling effects all throughout not only the zone that you did it in, but the game world. So if you kill this leg breaker, well, then his kid, no one's going to be there to protect his kid. So what are you going to do about that? And also, the merchant that he was extorting that guy's going to have better items for you. So it's not purely negative to eat someone, it just influences the world. Each zone, there's going to be several zones in the game, is going to have its own zone health that you can increase or decrease by, killing someone decreases the zone health, and helping cure them increases the zone health. And if it gets too low, it'll become a hostile enemy area, filled with, kind of these devolved vampires. So there's a lot of promise here with Vampyr. There's a lot of what they want to do with the game. They really want to make this a huge, really complex and deep experience, and I have to say, it sounds really like a lot to do, and I don't want to be judging before I see it, but it's going to be so hard for this all to come together with all these various factions, this web of everyone interacts with everyone. But we've seen them do really well with these complex narratives in Life is Strange. I was being a little bit funny before when I said that Remember Me is a game that definitely exists. I actually liked Remember Me. The combat was flashy, but kind of stale, and the world was really interesting, but it wasn't really developed well enough, and they kept throwing elements at me that I didn't get a chance to fully explore. And I think that they wanted to have more of that element in that Remember Me game. I think they really wanted to flesh out this world more, but due to budget and time, they didn't have the chance to. But with Vampyr, I think they really have the opportunity to tell a really complex vampire story. And that is what I think the focus of the game is going to be. That's what I think people are going to remember Vampyr for. And the combat looks fine, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of it as it is to come. And you can check out my article for what I thought of what I saw of the combat. But really, it's this vampire story that I think is going to appeal most to horror fans, and fans of these gothic narratives where it's not about things jumping out and going boo to scare you. It's about this deep, dark, in our own nature and human nature and the monster within. And that's really what they're going for here, is the conflict between this monster within and this doctor character. And, anyways, I'll have more information when Vampyr drops in 2017. I'm definitely looking forward to this one, and you should check it out too. If you want to check out the article, click the link below. If you want to see any of my previous videos, go to our Dread Central YouTube page. You can check any of them out there. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.